It is a Monday, October the 17th, 2022. The weekend got off to a great start and ended with a thud. What's up next for both the Browns and the Guardians? We'll get to it all on a Monday edition of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
First of all, I want to shout out to my buddy Andy Robbins, who is celebrating his 51st birthday today. We've been friends for forever, as long as I can remember. And I still remain 4 months older than him every year. I turn whatever, and 4 months later he does. So anyway, happy birthday, my friend. Lot to get to on this Monday. We recap a lot over the weekend. It was a busy weekend for both the Guardians and the Browns. And we'll start with the one team that there is good news. There's also bad news, but there's good news, much more good news with this team, and that's the Guardians before we get into the Browns. Since we last, I say since I last joined you, but since I last did the podcast, the Guardians have played 3 games, although we've been on after every game. I was on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. If you're only watching the podcast and not watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show post-game shows, I don't know what you're missing. We went on live after the Guardians win Friday, after the Guardians win Saturday, and after their unfortunate loss yesterday. So where we stand now is Game 5 scheduled for tonight back in the Bronx, 7:07 start. There is some rain in the forecast, so it could play a role here. Based on the forecast I saw this morning, maybe there's a delay. Who knows? There was a little rain in the game yesterday here in Cleveland, and good. Actually, I was gonna say it's a good thing they're not playing Cleveland, but I do wish they had a home game here. But it's supposed to. There's actually rain in the forecast both in Cleveland and New York. For baseball purposes, the New York one is the only one that matters. Although the percentage of rain throughout the night is lower in the Bronx than it is here in Cleveland, so that's good. So hopefully they'll get this game in. A part of me is hoping, if they get rained out, then maybe you could go to Bieber on 3 days rest tomorrow. But you know what? Ultimately, the Guardians are just going to have to score more runs. And they did in games 3 and 4. They scored enough to win. They didn't yesterday. It wasn't because of the pitching. Now, Quantrill wasn't great. But after giving up the 2-run homer to Bader to make it 3-0, he really settled in. The bullpen did a good job. Eli Morgan, the 1 run he gave up was an unlucky run. You had an inexperienced first baseman unable to make the stretch to get the first out, and then a blooper down the line where everybody stopped running. Guan stopped running. Rizzo stopped running. I don't know what kind of happened there, but it was a weird inning and a weird game for the Guardians. Overall, a good weekend as they take 2 out of 3 to send this to a 5th game. And when the series started, I said the Guardians would lose game 1, win 2 and 3, lose 4 and win 5. So far I've been on the money, and hopefully for all of us that will continue, and the Guardians will take care of business. I know when you lose a game 4 at home with a chance to close it out against a franchise that's had a lot of success, it's easy to get down and say, well, that's it. We blew our chance. I don't believe that. I think this is a 50-50 game tonight, maybe 55-45 Yankees because they're at home. But not much more than that. I think the Guardians have a great chance to win tonight. Obviously, they're going to need to likely they're going to need to score more than 2 runs to do it. Overall, they've hit pretty well in this series. Outside of Garrett Cole, Garrett Cole's pitched well against them, but they don't have Garrett Cole going tonight. Now, we don't have Bieber or McKenzie going tonight. It's going to mostly be a battle of the bullpens. Jamison Tyone will pitch for the Yankees in game number 5. We saw him in the 10th inning of game number 2. And he did not pitch well. That has been his only appearance in the playoffs. In fact, I think he's only pitched now 6 and plus innings since September 27th. So you're talking over 3 weeks, and he's only pitched 6 innings. So will he be rusty? I don't know. All I know is he's not Garrett Cole. He's not even Nestor Cortez. I mean, he's a decent pitcher, but he's not great. And same thing for Savali. I mean, Tyone's been better this year than Savali has been. But the good news is Savali did pitch well down the stretch, and they're not letting him go long. I'll be surprised if he faces more than 10 batters. And if he does face more than 10 batters, it's probably good news because it probably means he's been lights out, which is not often the case with Savali. But yeah, I just don't see him going more than 3. I mean, I guess if he retired the first 10 batters, maybe, and they're winning or something, it would be. All things being equal, if this is any kind of close game, low scoring game that we expect, I can't see Savali even facing Judge a second time. I think it's unlikely. It's all hands on deck in the bullpen. If you look at what the Guardians have done here, the big advantage, the Guardians already, as we know, have a big advantage in terms of bullpen. Just in general, the Yankees bullpen is not very good. It's been terrible in the second half of the year. And the Guardians bullpen has been great. They've only allowed 2 runs in the postseason. Hentges gave up a run in the extra inning win on Saturday, 6-5, and Eli Morgan gave up a run yesterday. That's been it. The bullpen's been lights out. Clase, Karinchak, and Stephan all have not pitched since Game 2, which was Friday night. So they're all on a lot of rest here. 2 days off in a row, and I know Clase ended up throwing a lot of pitches to get the final 7 outs of that game. He pitched 33 pitches, but he should be completely fine. Karinchak, who was very wild and couldn't even get out of the 7th? Yeah, couldn't get out of the 7th. He also threw a lot of pitches, 29, and Stephan threw 21. But again, all 3 have had 2 days off, and so they should be good to go, completely good to go. Meanwhile, Loaizaga has pitched 2 of the last 3 days for the Yankees. Wandy Peralta's pitched 3 days in a row, throwing a lot of pitches, and he's been their best guy. Clay Holmes was their best guy for a lot of the year, but he didn't pitch well in the second half, and they don't like pitching him 2 days in a row. I'm sure he will pitch if necessary in this game, but he pitched yesterday, and so bullpen, and then even you talk about your top. I mentioned the top 3 relievers there. Even your next guys who you're probably going to go to tonight, depending on the situation and depending on the inning, Hentges and De Los Santos, who have, for the most part, pitched well, those guys did not pitch yesterday either. So your top 3 relievers or your top 5 relievers all have at least 1, and your top 3 relievers have 2 days off. So this is a good situation to be in. This is going to be a battle of the bullpens. I'd be very surprised if we see either starting pitcher get past the 3rd inning. And if that's the case, that's a big edge for the Guardians. Obviously, the Yankees are at home. That's an advantage. They'll have the home crowd. That's an advantage. And then the rest of it is what it is. The Guardians are better getting on base. The Yankees are better hitting home runs. In terms of yesterday's game specifically and what happened there, obviously Quantrill got off to not a great start, gives up the run in the first inning, and then that freaking Harrison Bader, who has killed the Guardians in this series and is really I'm saying it because I'm rooting for the Guardians, but Harrison Bader makes, he's just got a punchable face. I don't want to do it. I mean, I'll kick my ass, but there's somebody tougher than me in the audience got to take care of it, please. Nah, I'm kidding. I don't advocate any violence. Everybody was all excited about that fight between the Guardians fans and Yankee fans in the stands. I joke around about punchable face and I'd like to hit this guy. I don't really want to hit anybody. I'm too old for that nonsense. We all should be too old for that nonsense. I'm joking around with that stuff. But Bader is annoying. I mean, he is annoying. He hits the home run. And then the Guardians, they fight back. They cut into the lead against Cole in the 3rd inning. And then, obviously, Naylor hits the big home run in the 4th. And that's the lead off the 4th inning. And at that point, I got a buddy here, my buddy Hans, shout out to him, was watching the game with me. And we're high-fiving it after the home run. And, look, they were down 3-0. Now it's 3-2. It's nobody out in the top of the 4th. Let's get something going here. And that's it. Garrett Cole, you got to sometimes you just give the opponent the credit. Garrett Cole, Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta from that point on were fantastic. The Guardians, after the leadoff home run by Naylor in the bottom of the 4th, had 2 base runners the rest of the way. I got 1 hit by Jimenez when he scoots into second, can't move him around, didn't even get him to 3rd, and then there was 1 walk later in the game. I can't remember who walked. It was Quan. Quan walked later. And that was it. So there was, 2 nights on Saturday night, an amazing comeback. They scored 3 in the 9th to win it. And you hoped you could pull off another miracle, but they went down with a whimper in that ninth inning, 1-2-3, very quickly against Peralta, which was big for him because he had pitched so much the last 2 days, so he got through that inning without a problem, and I think he only threw like 7-8 pitches, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah, 7 pitches. Now, I thought the bullpen did a good job yesterday. Morgan, you look at the line score, you're like, well, he gave 2 hits and a run. He got very unlucky. Very unlucky. Cody Morris pitched really well. Even Plesac pitched really well. Those guys, 3 innings, 5 Ks, and no base runners. But overall, 7 strikeouts in 4 innings by the Guardians' pen. They've allowed 2 runs in the entire postseason. I think they've given them 9 hits in the entire postseason. They've been great. And, some people were suggesting on Twitter that when they brought in Eli Morgan, who was great in the first half of the year, struggled in July and August, and then pulled it back together for the most part in September, and has pitched well in this series going into last night, and I thought pitched well last night too, just as I said, got a little unlucky. When he came in to start the top of the 6th, there were people tweeting at me saying, oh, Francona's just saving guys for tomorrow. Now, it turned out that you did end up saving the guys for tomorrow. But let me tell you something. If you think Francona purposely picked his B relievers because he wanted to save the guys for tomorrow, down only 1 run in the 6th inning at home with a chance to clinch out, to cap it off, he wasn't punting. To say he was you could say, well, he didn't use his best relievers. You could argue whether that's the best strategy or not. It didn't matter because they didn't score. Maybe I shouldn't say that. One thing always affects another. You never know what would have happened. But the idea that he was purposely punting to the next day makes no sense. He was absolutely not doing that, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about if you're saying that. Ultimately, he chose to go the B road with not his best relievers. But here's the bottom line: he trusts all these guys, and they've earned that, and they did their job. Again, you want to say Morgan didn't give up a run? Okay, I say he got unlucky. He didn't. It wasn't like he got crushed. If they have an experienced first baseman. And listen, I understand why they're playing Arias, and I got no problem with it. He got a couple hits the night before. They're getting no production out of that spot, and Naylor's banged up right now, and they feel more comfortable with Naylor at DH. I got no problem with it, but it hurt him. I mean, there were 2 plays. The error by Rosario, which shouldn't have been an error on him. It should have been on Arias. And then that play where Jimenez makes the great diving stop in the throw, and Arias can't hold the bag. If you have an experienced first baseman, those are both outs, or most likely they're both outs. Didn't happen. So back to the drawing board. The series is 1 game. That's it. What's happened 1 through 4 doesn't matter. It's meaningless. It's who's going to find a way to get just enough outs, to get those 27 outs, get enough pitching, patch it together with 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 guys total, both teams, to get those runs and get the 27 outs in the field to move on to play the Astros on Wednesday. We'll see who's up for the challenge. But all I know is whenever you've doubted, whenever any of us has doubted the Cleveland Guardians this season, they've always proven us wrong. And so I am not doubting this team. I believe in this team. I believe in their ability to win this game and move on to an even tougher team in the Houston Astros. Now, I'll admit, part of that's because I want it bad, because I despise the Yankees. But I really believe these teams are evenly matched. I think we've seen it for 2 days. I think people are misled into believing the Yankees are much better because they were much better early in the season, and they have a lot more power. And so people you turn that into, well, they must be a much better team. They had so many more home runs, and they got off to this great start. But right now, second half of the year, and right now in this moment in time, these teams are pretty close. By the way, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we have started with the Cleveland Guardians. And obviously on Tuesday's podcast, we'll talk a ton about the Guardians as well, recapping game number 5 tonight. By the way, as we've been doing, as soon as the game ends tonight, join me, Earl, and G for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Guardians postgame tonight. We will be live on YouTube immediately when the game ends. Join us. Hopefully it'll be another big celebration to talk about defeating the Yankees and moving on to beating the Astros, or playing the Astros, well, and beating the Astros potentially. But even if they don't win, we will be on tonight. Either way. All right, now let's talk about a team that, unlike the Guardians, who had a good weekend when they won 2 out of 3, even though it ended on a bad note. For the Browns, there's no good note. It's only a bad note. That's coming up next, right here. Where else would I be? I'm right here. In the bullpen with Adam the Bull. BetOnline.net, your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it's a Yellow Cup Monday. And let's get to the Browns. I'll be honest, it's such a bummer to talk about the Browns because they just suck right now. And for the last couple of weeks, have defended this team and defended the coaching staff, or at least the head coach. I think I've been a voice of optimism, not on purpose because I want to be the voice of optimism, just because I saw some things to be optimistic about. I think some of my partners at times can be a little overreactionary, which I am no stranger to as well. But yesterday was the bottom of the barrel. They faced a third-string quarterback making his second NFL start, and Bailey Zappi looked like a star. Now, and then on the other side, the offense was just awful. They gave up on the running game too early. We know that Nick Chubb is great and wears people down. I know he and the offensive line did not get off to a good start last week. But yesterday. Yes. You can't give up on the run. I know at some point you're down big. Okay, fourth quarter, fine. But they gave up on the run earlier than that. And by the way, even at the end of the third quarter, when you're down 24-6, don't give up on the run there. The way the Browns in general have moved the ball on the run, they're not going to use that much more time than when they're passing the ball. Jacoby Brissett takes forever to throw it down the field. I mean, you got to go with your strength, even when you're losing. Yeah, at some point in the fourth quarter, when you're down a ridiculous amount of points, okay, I get it. But they gave up on the run too early, not because of the game score, because it wasn't that effective early. But what we've seen with Nick Chubb is that the more carries you give him, the better. I'd rather go down swinging with the running game than throwing the ball too much. And overall, and I'll tell you a lot of things here. First of all, I do think it's clear it's time to make a change at defensive coordinator. And by the end of the year, I think both, unless there's a major turnaround, I think both Joe Woods and Mike Prefer have to go. Mike Prefer gets a pass because special teams is not as big a chunk of the team. But the Browns special teams have been a disgrace since he's been here. He's done an awful job as the special teams coach. At least I thought we saw some adjustments from Joe Woods yesterday. They outside of that Ramondre Stevenson, that one long touchdown run, I actually thought they stopped the run pretty well. But obviously the pass defense was terrible. Zappi did a great job of moving it around between Devontae Parker and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry and Jacoby Myers and Tyquan Thornton and Kendrick Bourne. He was moving it around. They don't have one great pass catcher. They don't. They have a bunch of, decent guys. And he was just getting it to the open man. The pass defense was awful, especially in the second half. And it was pitiful. To lose at home by 23 points to a team that kicked your ass last year. And Jacoby Brissett was horrible. And let me tell you something. I know that overall he's been better than expected this year in a lot of ways. You look at his PFF grade. There's a lot of things about his game that have been pretty good. But here's the bottom line to me for Jacoby Brissett. He's not a good quarterback. He's never been a good quarterback. We've said this from the beginning. He's overachieved to some degree. Like, think about what we're talking about. He's overachieved. He's got a 60 completion percentage. That sucks. He's averaging 6.4 yards per attempt. That's not good. 6 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's not good. A lot of the sacks, yes, the offensive line wasn't as good. And yesterday, it was the worst performance by the offensive line. And obviously, Wyatt Teller got banged up, and that factored into the running game because he's, with Petonio, their best run blocker. But I'm sorry, a lot of those, the heat he took yesterday, and he got sacked 4 times, was on him because he held on to the ball too long. He's not seeing things quick enough. That's always been a problem. He had David Njoku deep early in the game. He connected with him, but if he hit him in stride, it's a touchdown. Njoku had to stop on that route early. Go back and look at it. And I'm not usually throwing the backup quarterback guy. I've never really been that guy, unless it's a rookie that we drafted high, and it's like, come on, let him play, like with Baker when he first came in. I'm like, I don't want to see Tyrod Taylor. Let's play Baker. In general, unless that's the case with the rookie, I'm not bringing the backup guy. But I'll tell you what, and I'm far from convinced it's going to be any better. But what do the Browns have to lose by playing Joshua Dobbs? Jacoby Brissett's coming into this year, his only strength as a quarterback was not turning the ball over. Well, he's turning the ball over once a game, on average. So what am I going to do here? I mean, the guy, even going back to last year, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks. He's not a good athlete. He's not an accurate passer. So what am I doing? At least with Josh Dobbs, I got a guy who's an excellent athlete. He's a smart guy. We know that. I mean, So let's see what he's got. What do you got to lose? You're 2-4. I know some people are like, that's crazy. You're playing the Ravens and you're playing the Bengals. Well, these other teams are throwing in Bailey Zappi. Look at the quarterbacks the Browns have played against. This guy, Josh Dobbs, has never played. Maybe. I'm not saying he's going to be a great player. It's entirely possible he's better than Jacoby Brissett. You've lost to Bailey Zappi, Marcus Mariota, and Joe Flacco. I mean, come on. Maybe Josh Dobbs provides a spark because Jacoby Brissett looks scared to throw the ball. And again, I'm fully aware that Josh Dobbs could go out there and be horrendous. He might be atrocious. At least he can run. I don't think he's going to be scared to throw. Why the hell not? I'd like to see him out there. But the interesting thing is that as bad as the Browns have played, and it feels like it's over, again, I was disappointed in Stefanski yesterday. I still don't think the whole thing about the play calling drives me crazy. Again, pretty much every young coach in the league does that. I'm over that. I'm sure the guys will bring it up again today. I don't care. And I'm not going to fire Stefanski right now, but and he may get a pass because of the Watson suspension, and he may get one more year. Fair or not. But Joe Woods and Mike Prefer, at the very least, must go at some point. And I would fire Joe Woods right now. I'd move. They both deserve to be fired right now. I doubt either one will be. I don't know what Stefanski's obsession is with Prefer, but both of them stink. Both of them have failed at their jobs miserably. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'll tell you a little light of good news surrounding the Browns and what's been a sea of disgustingness. I'll do that in a second. First, Sleeper, fastest growing fantasy platform today with the NFL season kicking off. Sleeper climbing the charts with over 4 million plus users. In addition, they have 22 new features, including over-unders integrated into fantasy, the first sports contest game built into the fantasy experience. Not only can you enter a contest via over-under itself, but you can also do so through your Fantasy League's matchup screen, and it's super simple. Any sport, choose 2 or more players you like for the over-under. Rushing yards in football, number of points in basketball. Choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 to over 20 times the money you put in. Another reason I'm excited, it's the only app where I can join my friends' contests and play together, built-in group chat where we can talk trash and have fun. So stop what you're doing, download Sleeper, play the over-under game, have fun, talk trash, make some cash. On your mobile phone, join our listener group now at sleeper.com/lockedonbets or sleeper.com/lockedontoday. And you'll get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Again, that's sleeper.com/lockedonbets, sleeper.com/lockedontoday. You get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Okay, so as bad as things look for the Browns right now, and they look bad, here's the deal. This division is still very much up in the air. Kudos to the Steelers. I got to give them credit. I got to be fair, okay? I still think the Steelers are awful. I still think they're going to finish under 500. But kudos to them after they just got boat raced by the Bills last week. They dropped 4 in a row. I thought they were definitely going to 1-5 on their way to 1-7, 1-8, maybe 1-10. Kudos to them. They showed a lot of life on defense. I didn't get to watch much of the game because it was going on at the same time as the Browns. But good job by them stopping the 2-point conversion at the end. Their defense, even without T.J. Watt, played well. They frustrated Tom Brady, held him to 1 touchdown in the game. Good job by the Steelers. They got a win. Elsewhere in the division, the Bengals did win. Nice comeback by them. It was a weird game because for the most part this year, the Bengals' defense has been very good and their offense has been spotty. This game was the opposite. Their defense wasn't very good. The offense was a little spotty early, but it got going in the second half. They're still struggling to run, which is a problem, although they did average 5.5 yards per carry in this one. But Joe Burrow had a big game, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and they get a long Jamar Chase touchdown late, and they beat the Saints. And the Ravens, as we've done, they have been a disaster. They have been leading all these games. They've lost in their last 4 games. They've blown big leads in the fourth quarter. They did come back to beat the Bengals last week, but in the other 3, they've blown big leads, and they did it again. They were up 20-10 on the Giants, and they gave up 14 fourth quarter points. Lamar threw a pick late. They had a fumble late. Saquon Barkley didn't even have much of a game for the Giants. He has 22 carries, 83 yards. I mean, that's just a pedestrian game. Daniel Jones, I don't know how the Giants won this game. I honestly didn't see any of it outside of the highlights, but it was a weird game. But Lamar Jackson has, everybody after the first 2 weeks said, wow, Lamar bet on himself, and he's looking great, and he's back to MVP form. Well, kind of quietly, he hasn't been that good since those first 2 games. He's been 62% or lower completion percentage in 4 out of 6 games this year. Last 3 games, 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's been kind of inconsistent. I don't think he's played that well at all. He played great in the Miami game, and he played well in Week 1 against the Jets. He did throw 4 touchdowns against New England. But he's been good, but he hasn't been great. Offense is down. It's weird. I mean, I don't buy that the defense has found something here all of a sudden after all the rules go on the offense. I'm buying a coincidence, but I don't know, maybe the more the weeks go by, the less it looks like a coincidence. But the thing for the Browns specifically is, as bad as they've played, they've got the Ravens and the Bengals the next 2 weeks. And it's easy to say, oh, the Browns can't win those games. First of all, this is the NFL, right? And the Ravens and Bengals, as I just mentioned, are not playing great football. It's not like anybody in this division is dominating. So it's not impossible to think that the Browns could win the next 2 weeks. I mean, look at some of these games. The Falcons beat the 49ers. The Jets beat the Packers. I mentioned the Giants beat the Ravens. The Steelers beat the Buccaneers. So you had a lot of teams that you didn't expect to win. If the Browns win their next 2 games, I know that's a big if. But if they do, they are in first place in the AFC North. First place, no matter what else happens. Now, it potentially be a tiebreaker situation. But if they win the next 2, they'll be 4-4. And the best the Ravens and Bengals could be is 4-4, and the Browns would be 3-0 in the division, which would be a better record in the division than the Ravens or the Bengals. So it's right there for them. As bad as this start has been, it's right there for the Browns if they could turn it around. Now, the way they're playing, I'm sure you don't have any faith, and neither do I. But much stranger things have happened. And that's the point. So the season's not over. It feels like it's over because the team looks so bad. But as we know, things can turn around quickly. And if the Browns take care of business the next 2 weeks, they win the next 2, they're leading the division. They lose the next 2, season's completely over. They split the next 2, they're still in this situation. I'm sure most people would sign for a split of the next 2 right now. But if somehow they find a way to beat Baltimore and Cincinnati in back-to-back weeks, they're leading the division halfway to go with only 3 more games before Deshaun Watson comes back. We shall see. I'll see you on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today. I'll see you on the Guardians postgame today. And I'll be back on the podcast tomorrow. Where else? But right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.